Do my eyes deceive me? Stars uploaded? Well, they do not, and I am back. Sorry for the lack of videos, everybody. I told people this on our Discord, but for those of you who aren't there, I was on a little bit of a hiatus so that I could focus on the end of my college semester. But now I'm back, and it's summer, so I have plenty of time to focus on videos for you guys. But before I send you guys on to the rest of the video, holy crap, you're amazing. I up and disappear for 1 month, and you guys just casually get this channel to 4,000 subscribers. You guys are so awesome, and I'm so honored to have each and every one of you here in this community. I want you guys to know that. So, with that said, enjoy the video.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to our beginner series on the channel. Today we're going to start going over the behavior of the wildlife you'll find on Great Bear Island. Learning all about how the critters on Great Bear function is crucial to being able to survive the quiet apocalypse, especially on harder difficulties. At first, this video is going to cover all of the animals on Great Bear, but it started to get so ridiculously long that I decided to cut it down into 2 smaller, more digestible videos. So today we're going to be talking about prey specifically. We're going to talk about each animal's general information, interaction with other wildlife, detection for both you and the critter, defense, and hunting strategies. There's also a lot to note about wildlife during auroras, but we're going to cover auroras in a later video, so we'll focus on the regular behavior of Great Bear's wildlife in this video. The final thing I want to say before we get started is that there will be a future video all about hunting in the long dark. So while we're going to talk about some hunting strategies, I'm not going to go into extreme detail about bleeding out and other hunting mechanics in this video. So with that said, let's start looking into these guys and talk about what you need to know to become a wildlife expert during your time in the long dark. We're going to start off with the smallest of our animal friends, the ptarmigan. General info. First things first, the ptarmigan is the only animal other than the cougar that can only be found if you have the Tales from the Far Territory expansion pass, which I could not recommend more. Ptarmigans are itty bitty, about half the size of a rabbit. They're primarily white, but have little specks of black in their feathers around their necks. They typically appear in small flocks at designated areas called ptarmigan nests, ranging from about 4 to 6 ptarmigans per flock. But they can also appear alone or in smaller groups occasionally. But keep in mind, ptarmigans enjoy higher altitude locations, so you won't ever find ptarmigans in the coastal regions of Great Bear due to their low altitudes. If you kill a ptarmigan, you can harvest some yummy ptarmigan meat, as well as ptarmigan down, which is incredibly useful for a lot of improvised crafting options. Wildlife interaction. Ptarmigans get along just fine with the other animals of prey around Great Bear. They completely ignore deer and vice versa. It is mostly the same for rabbits as well. However, if a fleeing rabbit runs too close to ptarmigans, it will scare off the flock. Wolves are rarely in the same area as ptarmigans, but if they are, they will stalk and eat a ptarmigan if they get close enough. The ptarmigans are a little bit silly and they don't realize they could just fly away from the wolf and be fine. If a wolf manages to get one between its jaws, then the rest of the flock will flee. Bears, moose, and cougars will ignore ptarmigans completely, but if one gets too close to a flock, then the flock will flee. Detection. Since ptarmigans are white, they blend in very well with their surroundings. But never fear, if you want to become a master at detecting ptarmigans, all you have to do is listen. They'll make very distinct clucking and chirping sounds. Follow these sounds and you'll likely find their nest. But be careful when approaching them. Ptarmigans are very skittish, and if you scare one, you'll usually end up scaring the whole flock off, which can take anywhere from 1 to 4 days to return depending on your difficulty. In order to avoid detection, approach ptarmigans while crouched, which will allow you to get extremely close without scaring them off. Defense. Look at them. Why would they ever hurt you? Ptarmigans are very docile and will never attack you, so you never need to worry about defense for them. Hunting strategies. There are quite a few ways to go about hunting ptarmigans, but veterans of the craft will all agree on one thing. The trick to hunting ptarmigans is to learn how to hunt as many as possible without scaring the flock off. Another thing to note, before going into specific approaches to hunting, is the behavior of the ptarmigan once it detects your survivor. If a ptarmigan detects you, it will run a short distance on foot before taking off and flying away. Because of this, you will have a brief moment to take a shot at a ptarmigan even after it sees you. You can even shoot them out of the air if your aim is good enough. Now, on to how to actually hunt the thing. A couple obvious ways to hunt the ptarmigan is with a stone, revolver, or rifle. A little overkill if you ask me, but it gets the job done. Each of these methods will work, but it's ill-advised because they will scare off the rest of the flock once you've thrown or fired your first shot. Your best friend here is going to be the bow. Any variant of the bow will do because they all have one thing in common. If you fire an arrow at a ptarmigan, the rest of the flock won't flee. Additionally, fire-hardened arrows will always kill a ptarmigan, so you can save the durability of your better arrows for tougher targets. Using a bow will allow you to almost always take out an entire flock of ptarmigans at a time, and it's the best way to maximize the value out of the hunt. Before we move on to our next animal, there's one more method for hunting ptarmigans that may interest the more trigger-happy of you, which is to use this lovely thing right here. For those of you who don't know, this is a noisemaker, a little explosive that can be crafted and sometimes found, and it will instantly kill ptarmigans and rabbits that are in its explosion radius. If you throw a well-placed noisemaker, you could theoretically kill most of or all of a ptarmigan flock at once. But be careful with this strategy. Any you don't kill will certainly be scared off, and you can hurt your survivor pretty bad with noisemakers if you make a mistake. This may sound like a tempting option, but I would advise against it, both because it's dangerous and because it's a pretty extreme waste of resources. So, there's no better option for hunting ptarmigans than the bow. Plus, by using those fire-hardened arrows, you'll get a lot of credit towards your bow hunting skill. Now let's talk about Great Bear's rabbits. General info. Great Bear's rabbits sport a coat of brown-gray fur and can be found in every region of the island, including several transition regions. Like ptarmigans, they appear in groups and roam around designated areas called rabbit groves. These groups typically contain about 2 to 4 rabbits each. If you kill a rabbit, you'll get the chance to harvest some rabbit meat, a rabbit pelt, and a single gut. Wildlife interaction. Rabbits ignore ptarmigans and deer, and vice versa. However, a fleeing deer may cause nearby rabbits to run away as well. If a wolf gets close enough to detect a rabbit, it'll stalk and hunt it down. If a rabbit detects a wolf, then they'll let out a high-pitched squeal and run away. That squeal sounds like this. Similarly to that, if a rabbit detects a cougar, bear, or moose, they will also squeal and run away, despite the fact that those animals will ignore rabbits. This squeal mechanic can actually be quite helpful to you as the player, as it warns you if a dangerous animal is nearby. You can also discern if the animal is a wolf or something bigger by listening for a bark before hearing the rabbit, as the wolf will let out a bark before charging the prey that it's stalking. If you don't hear that bark, it means that it's most likely a bear, a moose, or a cougar. Detection. Apart from their squeals, rabbits don't make a lot of sound, apart from a very quiet footsteps. But if you hear those, you'll most likely have been seeing the rabbit for a while. Fortunately, due to their fur color standing out from the snow, you'll be able to see them from a fairly good distance away. Your best bet for finding rabbits is to head to the calmer, quieter areas of Great Bear and search for a rabbit grove. If you use charcoal to fill out areas of your map, these rabbit groves will actually show up on your map as well, so it'll help you know for sure where to return to find more. Rabbits detection for you is fairly simple. Rabbits aren't quite as skittish as ptarmigans or deer, but they still run off if you aren't careful. Fortunately, if a rabbit does detect and flee from you, they only run a short distance away before calming down and returning to the roaming mode. So you don't need to worry as much because you can always try to approach again. They also don't let out a squeal when they detect a player. Defense. Defense is very important when it comes to rabbits. While they appear harmless, there's a demon hiding behind those cute, cuddly eyes, and they have left corpses of many survivors in their wake. There's only one thing that can protect you from these foes.
Yes, of course! The Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch!
I'm sorry, I had to. In all seriousness, rabbits pose no threat or hostility to your survivor, so you don't need to worry about defense for them either. Hunting strategies. There are quite a few ways to go about hunting rabbits, but let's start with the simple ones. Any bullet or arrow will kill a rabbit, but if you're going to use a firearm or a bow, it's most recommended that you use a bow with fire-hardened arrows so you don't waste your bullets or better arrows' durability. You can also use stones to stun and kill rabbits, which is a very good way to hunt rabbits in the early game without using any of your resources, because stones don't lose durability when they're used. You can also craft, or even sometimes find, snares, which can be set up in rabbit groves. If you set up a snare in an area where rabbits are currently active, you can return about 12 in-game hours later to find either a dead rabbit by the snare, or the snare will be ruined. This is a much slower method for hunting rabbits, but can be used as a passive source of materials and meat while you accomplish some other task. This is also useful because snaring rabbits doesn't reduce the number of roaming rabbits in the grove, so you won't have to wait for them to respawn, and can continue snaring indefinitely. You can also use noisemakers in a similar manner that we talked about with ptarmigans, but once again, it is an ill-advised strategy. The final thing you can do is herding, which is where you have a rabbit detect you, causing it to run away from you. But you do this leading the rabbit towards a wolf, which will result in the wolf killing the rabbit. You can then scare the wolf off of its kill, and pick up the now dead rabbit. Just don't forget to thank the wolf for its service. So with all this known, stones and fire-hardened arrows are the most resource-efficient way to reliably hunt rabbits. But you can also use snares or herding to secure a couple rabbits as well. Other methods can be used, but shouldn't be prioritized. Now it's time to look at the majestic deer. General info. Deer have a very distinct, lighter brown coat, and have a male and female variant, with the male variant providing more meat when harvested. The male variant is also rarer than the female. They can be found in all regions of the island, and several transition regions as well. If you harvest a deer carcass, you'll be able to gather venison, 1 deer hide, and 2 gut. They typically appear in small herds of around 2 to 4 deer, and they'll stick close together grazing. If one deer is frightened, then the whole herd will flee for a brief time, but they'll eventually wander back and start grazing again. Wildlife interaction. Deer will completely ignore ptarmigans, rabbits, and even moose. Bears and cougars won't attack or hunt down a deer, but deer will still flee if they spot one nearby. If a wolf detects a deer, it will stalk and hunt it. The deer will run from the wolf once it notices it, but they can't outrun a wolf once it started hunting it. If a deer is fleeing and runs near ptarmigans or rabbits, it may cause them to flee as well. Detection. Deer are very easy to notice. Their brown hides stand out very distinctly from the environs of Great Bear, and they're large enough to the point where you will have a very hard time missing them. They'll occasionally make noise as well, but you're very rarely ever going to need to rely on that to detect them. They also have very distinct footstep sounds that can be very easily differentiated from other footsteps from the clopping of their hooves. Deer will detect you very easily, and they are very jumpy. The best way to avoid being detected by a deer is to approach it by crouching, but if you get close enough, it will likely flee the moment you stand up. Defense. The deer of Great Bear mean you no harm, survivor, so rest easy and go make a new Bambi. Hunting strategies. Hunting deer will be much more difficult than ptarmigans and rabbits. You can use firearms, bows, and even a distress pistol to attempt to take down a deer. You can take down a deer with a revolver, but it will most likely take multiple shots and there's a good chance that the deer runs away from you before you're able to finish the kill. A hunting rifle is definitely a better choice here. You can also use any kind of bow so long as you aren't using fire-hardened arrows, which don't do anything to animals larger than ptarmigans and rabbits. The distress pistol can also be used to damage wildlife, but it can be very finicky and unreliable to execute, so if you're a new player, I recommend sticking to the more traditional weapons. You can also implement herding with a deer as well. Causing a deer to flee in the direction of a wolf, and then scaring that wolf off of its kill is a very good way to get a large influx of food when you have no means of hunting larger game. If you do choose the weapon route though, I recommend picking the hunting rifle or a bow, whichever one you feel more confident with. Finally, we can get this video closed out with the moose. General info. The moose is the largest prey animal you'll find on Great Bear, and it's not close. This beast sports a dark brown hide and it's far rarer than the other prey animals. They have a chance to appear in most regions of the island, but can be difficult to find. Fortunately, they use their antlers to leave rub markings on trees and areas that they roam. Areas with these markers indicate an active moose area. Every 2 in-game days or so, there is roughly a 25% chance that a moose will spawn in this zone. There are some areas that have a higher chance of moose spawning, such as Hushed River Valley's 35% chance, Mystery Lake Forest Cabin's 30%. There's also some special moose areas that don't have any markings to signal their location, such as the Quonset Garage, Trapper's Cabin, and Matt's Truck, which each have a 5% chance instead. When a moose does spawn, it will not stick around forever, and it will despawn after around 2 in-game days. After this, it can take quite a while for a moose to spawn again, so when one is there, you want to capitalize off it. Moose are also the only prey animal on Great Bear that can be hostile to your survivor, and if you find yourself in a struggle with a moose, you'll receive the broken ribs affliction. When harvesting a moose carcass, you'll be able to harvest a massive amount of meat, as well as moose hide and 12 gut. Wildlife interaction. Moose will ignore all wildlife other than wolves, which it'll flee from if it gets close enough to detect them. Moose are also the only prey animal on Great Bear that wolves will not hunt and instead flee from. Detection. Moose are very easy to spot since their brown hides stick out from the surrounding environment. Plus, they are massive. They're also quite loud and have loud footsteps as well. Additionally, since almost all the moose areas have markings, you'll likely see markings before you even get close to a moose. So if you see markings, just know to proceed with caution and keep an eye out. Moose will detect your survivor if they get too close. If the moose detects you, it'll lower its head, brandishing its antlers at you, and stomp at the ground, warning you that you're too close. If you don't back away quickly, the moose will begin to charge you. Defense. Finally, we have something to talk about here. First off, let's discuss how to deal with a moose that isn't already charging you. If there's a moose blocking a path that you need to get to, you can cause the moose to flee with a noisemaker, or by throwing a stone / firing an arrow near it, not at it. If you hit it, there's a chance it might notice you and charge you. Once a moose is charging, you'll have far fewer options. You'll not be able to deter a charging moose with a torch, flare, or even by shooting at it with arrows, unless of course you can kill it before it reaches you. The only way to stop a charging moose is either to get to a spot that it can't reach you, or to shoot at it with a firearm, which includes the distress pistol. If you do either of those things, the moose should begin to flee, giving you a chance to escape. Hunting strategies. If you're going to try and take down this massive creature, you're going to have to first decide what weapon you're using. You can use a distress pistol and a revolver, but I wouldn't recommend it. As I mentioned earlier, using the distress pistol for hunting can be very unreliable, and the revolver simply doesn't do enough damage to take down the moose very quickly. So if you have access to a hunting rifle or a bow, use one of those. Unlike the other wildlife on Great Bear, the moose is immune to blood loss, so it won't bleed out, meaning that unless you land a really lucky shot, you'll almost always need to land multiple arrows or bullets to take one down. The hunting rifle is going to be the easier choice of the two for this scenario because of how moose react when being shot. When a moose is shot, it staggers, becoming stunned for a moment, which allows you time to take another shot, effectively stun locking it. So if you're going to hunt a moose with a rifle, what I recommend is getting just close enough for the moose to detect you. This is so that it enters its warning stance, which gives you a really good shot at its head. Then, open fire. As long as you continue to fire bullets and you don't miss, it shouldn't even be able to reach you before you take it down. The bow is trickier, because arrows don't cause the moose to stagger, so you'll have to take a stealthier approach. You want to find a spot where you can get a good shot on the moose, but it also won't detect you when you hit it. Fire an arrow at it, and it will flee for a bit, but eventually, it'll return to its moose area. You can't chase it down if you don't feel like waiting, and then find a new spot to stealthily take another shot from. Or, you can be patient and stay in the spot you found, and fire more arrows once it returns. Repeat this process until the moose dies. Alrighty guys, that's all you need to know about the prey on Great Bear. I hope now that we're here, you guys can understand why I split this topic into 2 videos. It would have been a really long one that would have been overwhelming to digest all at once. I hope that this video could help any new players out there, and if you are a veteran player, maybe I could teach you something new. As always, if I missed anything or got anything wrong, please let me know. I care very greatly about the integrity of the information I'm giving you guys. If you like the video, then please like the video. It helps out the channel a lot, and leave any comments or questions down in the comments. Subscribe to me for more videos like this, and thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.